Dear employees of Walmart, what is the weirdest Martian you have encountered? I had a guy come through my line wanting to buy a Flow B, that 90s vacuum haircut thing. He wanted to barter with me for it. I tried telling that corporate sets the prices, but he seemed to think I was personally profiting from it. He was extremely irate. He finally says fine. I'm not going to buy it then. I got a lot of people like that think I control the prices or care if they buy something or not. Not an employee, but I was shopping in there one night and this lady was pushing a shopping cart with a baby car seat thing in it. She had a bag of Cheetah soap and was eating them. Pushing the cart. I saw her out of the corner of my eye grab a Cheeto, reach down and give it to the baby. I was thinking WTF when she reached in and got another. And then this tiny black hairy arm comes out. She had a freaking baby monkey dressed in baby clothes in her shopping cart with a veil covering it up so you couldn't tell. Just casually feeding it Cheetos while doing some midnight shopping, I guess. I worked as a merchandiser and would spend at least 75% of my work hours in Walmart. During finals week, I would go in and stock shelves during the night shift. There was a night crew worker who would change his name tag daily. One night it was Owl. Next shift Night Owl. Next shift Owl Night. Then Owl Night. Then Night Owl. This one employee had over 20 different name tags. The guy that brought back a wooden toilet seat BC, it was cracked. He had the receipt which showed it was purchased 7 years ago. We refunded his money. Edit. Several people have asked where this happened. It was in Missouri in the early 90s. Back then, we refunded everyone. So I don't work at Walmart, but I used to work at its largest national size comparative. And we only have a slightly different color scheme to this works to an extent. It has to be the dude who walked up to with a fake tit strapped to his chin, alternating between talking and sucking on it, and asked me if we had a certain anime. Given that A, we don't carry anime, and B, I later found out that the title he was looking for was taboo porn from the early 90s. I had to send him away. I don't know why he was walking around with a fake bob neck apparatus, nor why he expected us to carry hardcore Japanese gel decking. But damn it, he was entertaining. I worked at Walmart for about 3 months. In that time, there was a man with no pants, someone sleeping in a shopping cart, and some very mean Amish people. My mom works at a Walmart. She has an obese black lady who comes in almost daily, scooters around, and randomly yells at products. I saw her sternly lecturing a shampoo bottle when I went to meet my mom for lunch once. She's always pretty chipper when talking with people, but some inanimate objects just really gets her goat, I guess. Okay. I worked for Walmart for 5 years. In that time I met lots of strange, funny, interesting people. The one that stands out to me the most is a guy that I affectionately nicknamed Fresh Breath Bob. He would come in and steal by as much mouthwash as he could carry to the end of the parking lot and proceed to drink it all. He would get hammered and belligerent, but his breath was just so fresh. I worked at a Walmart in Plano, TX. One 4th of July. I was working the registers and a woman came into the store wearing only a string bikini. This alone would not have been the strangest thing. But she was about 5'4" and 300 pounds. Not just that, but her complexion was stark white. The bathing suit she was wearing made it look like a rubber band stretched to the breaking point around an oversized marshmallow. Had a guy offer me $400 to hold his big dick while he takes a piss. No. I didn't do it. Sounded like a scam. Had some stoner come in and try to walk across my floor that was covered in stripper for some bacon at 3 AM. Had his baby in his arms. He busted his ass hard, but he caught the baby. I guess dad reflexes are still decent when stoned. So much sheet on the walls in the women's bathrooms. So much sheet. Women be painting Picasso in there. Some weird old guy used to come swoon over the female employees at night in a scooter. He bought some car speakers and spent the entire night installing them in the parking lot. Edit. The stripper part seems to be confusing people. I'm not implying that the floor was covered in nude bodies. I was referring to stripper as in the chemical used to strip up floor wax. I was department manager of general merchandise at a neighborhood market a couple years ago. Had this old lady come in and she was furious that we were no longer carrying a specific flavor of cat food. She talked to the CSM and demanded that we order some for her. CSM told me which one she wanted, so I got on my Walmart app and managed to find a UPC. It was not tried, but I could still order it. So I found her and asked how many she would like me to order. She replied, "You can't help me. You are not in charge of pets," and I told her actually I am over the pet debt. And I'd be happy to place a special order for you. She told me don't argue with me. The customer is always right, and stormed off back into the store to look at more cat food. I worked at Walmart in the late 90s for a year in the electronics department. We had a guy come in every week and buy something from our department. He would hold an employee hostage for at least an hour for whatever item he wanted to buy. Every insignificant detail had to be questioned and debated, no matter the product: portable cassette player, universal remote, etc. The very next day he would always bring it back complaining it didn't work how he was told. And not just complaining. He would go all livid about it and threaten to sue if he didn't get his way. Turns out, this was some elaborate ruse to get a chance to hit on the woman who worked the customer service desk. Let's call her Rachel, and he was married. The days she wasn't working is when he would actually come to the department and browbeat us like we had done something wrong. He eventually stopped when Rachel quit. Edit. Grammar corrections. An older guy, pretty dirty and homeless looking, came up and asked me to ring him up through the electronics register. He was leaning over like he had something in his jacket and his hand was inside. I thought nothing much of it. Kind of expected to laugh later and say it looked like I was about to be robbed. Nope. As I scan his groceries, he looks into me eyes and says with the creepiest face and smile, "Do you want to see my treasure?" I just stared at him. What was it? A gun? His meat and potatoes? Imagine my terror as he slowly opens his jacket to reveal what appeared to be a newborn puppy. Very newborn and slimy. And very much not moving. I told my boss I had to go to break after that one. There was a lady that came in very regularly and demanded everything be double or even triple bagged. And would have a very loud meltdown when a cashier didn't know this was her preference. Also an older woman who had sheet fall out of her pants as she walked past my checkout lane. Ever seen the Scary Movie with the guy who has the ducked up hand and touches all the food? I was checking out at Walmart once years ago and the cashier had both hands like that. Short arms too. I just remember feeling so awkward watching him try and pick up the items to scan them, then bag them. Felt sorry for the guy, but that was for sure the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Ever been to Walmart in Greenville, Mississippi? I've seen some shit. Man. In these areas, walking into a Walmart is like visiting a different planet. Speaking of weird growths, one of the worst Martians I saw was this guy who looked like he was attacked by a tiger or something. Large claw-like rips across his shirt and the end of his pants had that sexy flared ends look like they caught on fire. One of his pant legs was apparently burned all the way up to his knee. Picture it like the guy had one leg as shorts and the other leg down to ankle. He had this massive purple boil type growth that covered the entire left side of his face. I hope I painted a good mental picture of this. Not an employee, but a girl that I know told me about how on her birthday she and her friends went into Walmart, pissed on the floor, and left. She thought it was hilarious. I thought it was gross and inconsiderate. Had a woman come in wanting to print photos, but she was convinced that our machines weren't safe and that she would be hacked again. In all my idiot glory I asked was she hacked before, and that released the almighty conspiracy rant about how this Indian man was hacking her and posting her stuff online. She also claimed to have photos of this man and his wife. She printed off those photos as proof for the police. The photos were stock images from Google. It's amazing what mental illness can do. We have a pretty heavy guy coming every few days, despite being banned several times. He rarely purchases anything. Just rides his scooter puff JR around and makes sexual comments to the women in the store. When confronted, he will explain how he is a secret operative in the CIA, or how he is actually part owner of Walmart. My favorite line of his was that he was the Prince of Oklahoma. I just had a fat lady in a mart cart try stealing a ham by putting it between her legs this Thanksgiving. We caught her but we didn't want the ham back. Former cashier here. I was in a rural New Mexican town near the Texas border. There was a man that the cashiers had all nicknamed Catman. Catman was weird. He had a salt and pepper bowl cut, parted straight down the middle and stopped at about the middle of his ears. He had a thick Walter Cronkite mustache that matched the salt and pepper coloration of his hair. Catman came in about 3 times a week. He'd never have a full cart. It was always mostly empty. His groceries came out to be around $60.70 every time. It was mostly cat food. About 20 or 30 cans of wet cat food scattered the basket and a big bag of dried food was usually on the bottom rack. He'd occasionally buy human food like frozen pizzas or dinners, but not much. At the register, he was always very quiet and reserved. I can't recall ever seeing him buy cat litter with all that cat food. Worked at the wall for 5 years. Aside from the usual trashy people, the one that sticks out to me was the Spectre. She was a tall woman probably in her 70s. She would come in and shop always wearing a white dress and a corset, cinched up extremely tight over the dress and wearing white face paint and lipstick. Like kabuki makeup. This wasn't just one time. Coming home from a play or something. This was several times a week for years. Nobody I know at the store ever talked to her. We were all too afraid. It seems most Walmart employees themselves are weird. I live in rural Ohio, and the local Walmart, a few years ago, hired a pretty young Chinese girl who seemed to speak barely any English. I tried to talk to her, sort of flirt with her, and got nowhere. What did I do? Went home and learned some Mandarin. The next time I ran into her there, I greeted her in Mandarin and her eyes lit up. It was the cutest thing. Shortly after, I guess she got fired or something. I never saw her again. Never saw him, but there were a few months where someone would cheat in the same urinal. Didn't catch the guy, but I came close. I only think it was the same guy because it just started all of a sudden and it happened like 5 times and then stopped. I did a brief 3 months as a Walmart cashier. Craziest thing was just after I finished training and was on the cash register for the first time. I was slow, not a good cashier, I'll go ahead and say. Finished up a guy's purchases and an old lady steps up next. I put on my customer service smile. Ask how she's doing. She mumbles something I can't understand, so I'm just smiling as I scan when she tells me to wipe that smile off your face. And some other stuff I can't remember now. Grumpy old lady did not like the kindness I tried to extend. Also had a young lady carrying her toddler. Mom was yapping on her cell phone and the kid was holding a toy which she was chewing on while I was scanning. Got done scanning the items on the belt. Tried to tell mom the price and she has to finally hang the phone up and hand me the toy said toddler just had in her mouth. Mom set the toy on the belt. I go to pick it up. Not really looking at it and stuck my fingers in something cold and slimy. Kinda felt like pudding. I don't have any idea what I stuck my fingers in that day, but from that point on I wore latex gloves at the register. Most jarring thing I saw was an employee who, I don't know what it was and I hate to be judgmental, but it was creepy. There was some kind of growth on her face. Like picture a pimple, but over an inch long. As if a worm had started to tunnel into her and was just dangling there with its back end sticking out. Except it was her own skin. And she was a cashier. I don't know how she had anyone come through her aisle. Also there was one shopper who, even though his shirt went well below the waist of his pants, his stomach hung down below it. Almost down to the inseam of his pants.